Ever wander through the grocery store, like amazed by how perfectly lined up all the cereal boxes are, and think, who actually does this all day?
Right.
Well, we are about to take a deep dive into the world of shelf fillers.
Yeah.
It's a job that, honestly, most of us probably take for granted, but it's way more intricate than you might think.
Oh, for sure.
And the source we're using for this deep dive is career guides from RoleCatcher. They've got some great insights.
Yeah, they do. It's a role that, people might not think much about, but it's absolutely crucial to how a retail store actually, functions day to day.
Exactly.
And as we're going to uncover here, there's actually a surprising amount of strategy involved.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. We've all seen shelf fillers in action,
Right.
but what are they actually doing during a typical shift?
So, on the surface, it seems pretty straightforward, right? They're the ones stocking shelves, they're rotating the products, making sure that all the new stuff is at the front, the older stuff is, moved to the back. They're just keeping an eye out for anything that's expired. But it's also about understanding how to best arrange those products to, catch your eye.
Oh, you've hit on something really interesting there. So you mean there's more to it than just making it look neat and tidy?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a surprising amount of psychology involved, actually. For example, you might think facing products forward on the shelves is just, an aesthetic thing, but studies have shown that it actually reduces theft.
Wow.
And improves customer satisfaction because, well, they can see it all.
Right.
It's about creating this inviting and, easy shopping experience.
So it's a blend of physical work and a bit of visual merchandising too.
Yeah, precisely. And let's not forget about the logistical side of things too.
Right.
They're, navigating those often very busy aisles with those massive trolleys, right? They're operating, forklifts to move pallets of goods. They're even climbing ladders to reach those top shelves that, are hard to get to. It's a physically demanding job for sure.
Right.
That requires, spatial awareness and careful coordination.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I've definitely never thought about the forklift certification that might be needed.
Right.
It sounds like there's a lot more to it than really meets the eye.
Yeah.
So far we've talked about the physical aspects and the merchandising, the visual side of it. But what about technology? I imagine things have evolved quite a bit from just checking expiration dates.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, technology is definitely changing the game, even for, entry-level roles like this.
Right.
Like handheld scanners, for example, are pretty much standard equipment now. And they allow shelf fillers to, track inventory in real time. Imagine, right, you're using this handheld scanner, and you instantly see if you have enough, I don't know, organic apples to meet the day's expected demand. And you can avoid those dreaded empty shelves, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of tech that we're talking about.
Wow. So it's not just about brawn anymore. It's about working with technology too.
Yeah.
This is giving me a whole new appreciation for what goes on behind the scenes at the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much responsibility shelf fillers have, especially when you factor in the whole technology aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm curious, what about the career path itself? Is this, kind of a dead-end job, or is there, actual room to grow within the industry?
That's a great question, and I think it's something a lot of people wonder about.
Right.
And while it's true that, not everyone who starts out as a shelf filler is, looking for this long-term career in retail.
Right.
The opportunities for advancement, I think, are often really underestimated.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So the source we have here mentions specific, career stages for shelf fillers.
Yeah.
Could you walk us through what that progression actually looks like?
Absolutely. So it's outlined in 4 stages, starting with entry level and going all the way up to senior.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is how the skills that are required and even just the nature of the work itself, how that actually evolves with each step.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Entry level shelf filler. What are the core skills needed at this stage?
So at this level, it's all about, mastering those basics that we've been talking about, right? So stocking, rotating, making sure everything is, faced properly, and then just maintaining a clean and organized workspace. It's about learning the layout of the store, understanding the different product categories, and getting familiar with, basic inventory procedures. Attention to detail, I think, is super crucial here.
Right, so it's very hands-on, very foundational.
Exactly.
So what comes next?
So the next step up would be the junior shelf filler role. And this is where, you start to take on more responsibility and your focus expands a little bit beyond just like your assigned aisle or your assigned section.
Right.
You're collaborating more with the team as a whole, understanding how to like manage inventory on a slightly larger scale. And you might even start to be, trained on how to operate some of that equipment we were talking about, like forklifts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So more teamwork, a bit more strategy involved at this level.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like this is where, like, those organizational skills would really start to come into play.
Exactly. You're not just, following the instructions that you're given anymore.
Right.
You're starting to, like, anticipate needs like, oh, I've noticed that this particular item seems to be running low, Let me take the initiative to, like, go restock that before it's, totally gone.
Right. Be proactive.
Exactly, yeah.
I can see how that would be so valuable.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what about the next level up?
Yeah.
The experienced shelf filler. What, like, really distinguishes this stage?
So now this is where, you're really stepping into more of a leadership role.
Okay.
You're not just, managing those stock levels for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're also supervising and training those junior shelf fillers.
Oh, wow.
Making sure that, they understand the procedures, that they're kind of maintaining those standards that, you've helped to establish. You kind of become the go-to person for making sure everything's running smoothly.
Wow. So you've gone from, like, literally stocking the shelves to, like, leading a team.
Yeah.
That's quite a jump. What does that final stage, the senior shelf filler, like, what does that entail?
Yeah, you could definitely say that. So the senior shelf filler, they're basically like running the whole show when it comes to inventory and stocking. They're the ones developing those things, like big picture stock management plans, thinking about efficiency, thinking about, profitability,
Wow.
maybe even negotiating with suppliers at that point.
Wow.
And data analysis, that technology piece we were talking about?
Right.
That becomes super important at this stage. They're the ones analyzing like all the sales data to understand trends and really just making sure that the store is stocked with what they know customers actually want.
It's incredible how much depth there is to this role. I really started out thinking, okay, shelf filler, it's about keeping things, tidy and in order.
Right.
But there's like a real opportunity here to actually like learn, grow, and even, potentially move up within the ranks of this entire industry.
Absolutely. It really challenges those preconceived notions, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah.
And it goes back to those transferable skills we were talking about. The organization, time management, customer service, even those leadership skills.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that are valuable at, every level of the retail industry, and honestly, even beyond that too.
That's so true. Okay, so let's say someone is listening to this and they're like, this shelf filler thing, maybe that's something I want to look into.
Right.
What advice would you give them, like, going into an interview? Because I know the RoleCatcher guides, thankfully, had some, like, sample questions.
Yes.
Which is super helpful.
It's so helpful, right? Because it's one thing to just be like, oh, you got to be organized. But then it's like, but how do you actually, like, show that?
Right. Exactly.
In a way that's going to, like, resonate with someone who's, interviewing you for a job.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
So let's dive into those questions a little bit. What stood out to you?
Well, so some of them are, pretty standard, right? Like, tell us about your previous work experience. Like, that's to be expected, They want to know, have you handled, similar tasks before? But even those, I think, you can really approach strategically. Don't just list off, your past jobs. Really highlight the specific, tasks or projects that you did that demonstrate those key skills that we've been talking about.
That's such a good point. It's about like framing those experiences in a way that is, really relevant to the actual role.
Exactly. Now, a couple of the other questions I thought were like really interesting. One was, how would you prioritize your restocking tasks if you were faced with limited time?
Okay.
And I like that one because it's, it makes you think really practically about the job itself and how you would actually handle those everyday challenges.
Right, because that happens all the time, I'm sure.
All the time, right. And then there was another one that was, how do you make sure that you're meeting the needs of customers while also, maintaining the cleanliness and organization of the store?
Ooh, good one.
Which I thought was interesting. It's almost like they're asking you to articulate, like, what is the core challenge of this job, which is balancing those customer facing duties, right?
Yeah.
With that, like, behind the scenes work.
That's a really good observation because it's also testing whether you see that like bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it actually highlights something really important, I think, for anyone prepping for like a shelf filler interview.
Mm.
Don't just tell them what you do, explain your thought process.
Yes. Such a good point. Like, give them, a little glimpse into how your mind works. So, if they ask about, like, oh, how would you handle, if you found a damaged product on the shelf,
Right.
don't just say, oh, I'd remove it from the shelf. Like, walk them through it.
Exactly.
Okay, well, first I would make sure it's, safe for other customers. Then I'd check for any similar products nearby to see if it's like a wider issue, and then I would, obviously remove that damaged item and, report it to a manager.
Right. It shows that initiative that you can like handle those unexpected situations because let's be real, they pop up on the job all the time.
All the
No
time.
matter what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little preparation, I think, can make all the difference.
100%. So to our listeners, next time you're, pushing your cart through those aisles, just take a moment to appreciate the folks that are keeping those shelves stocked and organized.
Yes.
Because they might be, just starting out their journey.
Right.
Or they might be, well on their way to like a senior management position.
That's right.
But either way, we've learned that there's a lot more to this role than meets the eye.
Absolutely. Way more than meets the eye. And hey, if those shelves are looking exceptionally well stocked and organized when you're at the grocery store,
Yes.
maybe they listened to this deep dive before their interview.
Maybe they did. I love it.